Good evening. This is the March 28, 2018 meeting of the Finance Committee. It being 7 o'clock, we're starting on time tonight. Our agenda includes a couple of transfers, actually 3 transfers to make. The budgets we're going to be reviewing tonight, including CIP, include Fire Rescue Department CIP, the Department of Public Services, and that's including the Veteran Services, the Senior Center / Elder Affairs, also the Department of Public Works, which includes divisions Engineering, Stormwater, Highway Facility Management, Fleet Maintenance, Parks, Packagug Golf Course, Recreation, Cemetery, and Sewer. We're also looking at the budgets for Town Hall, General Services, and then we'll adjourn. Our next meeting will be in 2 weeks. We'll be trying to finish up the budget. So let's start with, we've got a couple of transfers. First one is the Police Department as a transfer. Lieutenant Harrigan's here. Thanks for joining us tonight. Our requested is $25,000 going to the overtime account from the patrolman account. Reason for the transfer is to cover any overtime related to shift coverage, emergency callback, or after-hours response for both sworn members and dispatch personnel. Lieutenant Harrigan, once again, good to see you, and I know you said you'd be coming before us. We thought it might be in a couple of weeks, but I guess we're just trying to get the paperwork going on this.
Right, because at this rate, it doesn't look like we're going to make payroll for next week for overtime, unfortunately. So we've decided to take an incremental approach to it because we're still uncertain as to the IOD disability that we may be getting, and we are actively looking to fill a dispatch position. That position is going to be available as of April 2nd when our current full-time dispatcher is leaving us to go to the State Police Municipal Academy. So we've offered the position to 2 different people, and they've declined the full-time position, so we're continuing the search. So we're hoping to have that filled sooner than later. But it doesn't look like that'll happen before the end of April. So there's 25 shifts alone in April that need to be filled just in dispatch. So we're going to see how far this $25,000 gets us. And
All right. Sounds like we'll be seeing you before the end of the fiscal year.
You may.
Okay. Not unexpected. And as I remember, your budget for next year, we did make an adjustment to overtime?
correct.
Yes.
Was that 50 grand? Okay.
50,000, right.
Good. I'll open this up to any questions, unless we have a motion.
Motion to approve?
Just a question. Just, you mentioned incremental. Do you have any idea, or are we at this point, how many increments you may be coming back for? Do you think this will be a second one or a second,
There
third?
may be a second one needed. Hopefully, we'll have some information from the insurance company by May. I know we probably won't have the information for your next scheduled meeting, and then hopefully for the town, the annual town meeting, we'll know better where we're at, and then project out through the end of June.
And second question, just relative to the 2 that turned down the position.
Yeah.
You mind sharing what their reasons were, that you made offers to them and then they decided not to accept?
I think one is because it just didn't work out, full-time student still, and didn't work out for their schedule, and the other one is happily employed full-time where they're currently working, and that was the information I was given, so they've declined. They're both going to work for us part-time, but they were just not interested in the full-time position.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions? Do a motion?
So move. Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thanks,
Thank
Eileen.
you.
Good to see you. Okay. Our second transfer tonight, this is within the fire department. Lieutenant Johnson, good to see you tonight.
Deputy.
Deputy, I'm sorry. That's right. I apologize. Deputy.
Good evening,
Mr.
everyone.
Chairman, just some information for all of the members. Item number 8 on this transfer, we are amending that as a result of some discussions we had today. The request is for $25,000. We respectfully request that that be changed to $18,276.13.
Still to the overtime account, Ed?
Correct.
That's fine. So we've got 8 total transfers, and 4 are going to building maintenance, and a couple other various accounts. I'd like to, at first, accept a motion to take the first 4 transfers to building maintenance as one.
So moved. Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so voted. Deputy Johnson, I assume the reason for this is all related to the same event or repair?
For the building maintenance?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you fill us in on that?
Sure. While we were doing the bunk room project, we ran some radios up to the bunk room, and at that time, we found some wiring issues on the apparatus floor that had nothing to do with the bunk room, but we were able to fix those problems, and that's what that's related to.
Okay. Is that about $4,300 approximately?
Yes, the transfer is?
Yeah, I'm just doing that in my head, I apologize. Okay, thanks. Actually, I'll open that up to any questions relative to that, Kim?
Glenn, do you know how much we spent on the renovation project total?
For the bunk room, I don't have that number in front of me right now. I do not, but I can get that for you.
Did that project start last year?
That project, it started in the summer, July, and went through until about October.
Okay, because I know we had a significant number of transfers at the end of the fiscal year last year. That was not related
That
to this
was,
project?
that was related, we were able to buy some of the supplies
Okay.
for the project to help
Supply related. Okay.
offset the cost.
Great, okay. Any other questions, Kev? Okay. All right, so let me just go through these transfers quickly. From the advertising account, $100. From general instruction, $549.50. From the training account, $11.24. And from fire suppression, $3,731.37, approximately $4,300 in total transfers. So motion.
Motion to approve?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Okay, great, thanks. The next transfer is to equipment repair. This is for an unexpected repair. Amount requested, $1,158.75. What was the piece of equipment?
So we had 2 minor motor vehicle accidents. We had someone back into one of our, the fire prevention car, and then we also had one of the ambulances had some bumper damage from a residence when they were backing into the driveway. They hit a snowbank and there was a rock in it, and so we had to have those repaired.
Not quite to the level of insurance on these, I guess. huh?
Correct.
Okay, this is from fire suppression, $1,158.75. Do I have a motion on this?
Motion to approve?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Okay, the next transfer, this is going to the new equipment account, and that's to replace a failed hose. Amount requested, $2,176.79. This is also coming from fire suppression. Any questions?
Motion to approve?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. And the final 2 transfers are both going to the overtime account. I believe the same overtime account. I'll accept a motion to take them together.
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. And this is to cover a shortfall due to injuries, so multiple been out.
Yes, so since July, we've had 11 injuries on the department. Not all of them have been related to employment within the fire department. They've been outside employment or outside injuries that have affected the department, but we've had 11 since July, and that has created some additional overtime that was unexpected, and we still have some people out at this time, which is guaranteed to create more overtime than what we had originally anticipated.
Okay. So you'll be back.
Yes, we'll be back. So I guess I'd like to say that this money that we're transferring right now will get us a little bit further, but will not carry us through the end of the year. So we
Okay.
do expect a shortfall at the end of the year, and we're trying to limit that shortfall at this time.
And the total amount is just over $28,100. $9,983.26 is coming from holiday payroll, and $18,276.13 is coming from the firefighter salary account. Kevin? Question?
2 questions, really.
Sure.
number one, how did we go from our amendment from a very round number to a very, very specific number? And secondly, if these are relative to injuries, will we see at some point refunding through, are any of these going to be benefit, like the police one, towards insurance, IOD payments coming back to us?
So the reason we're not doing the entire transfer like the police department, there may be an offset coming as a result of a firefighter.
Yes. We have one.
Currently out on IOD. So we get up to $1,000 per week reimbursement, subject to a number of things, but we anticipate hopefully that the Hartford, our insurance carrier, will reimburse the town, therefore limiting the amount of the requests that may have to be asked for before June 30th. The reason we dropped this is because the payroll encumbrance in our Munis software was inflated because it annualized a pay for an individual who's currently out, he's putting in limited time right now. So we had it over the last
Yeah,
2 weeks and out for the next 3 weeks.
correct. Yes.
That being said, we had to adjust the encumbrances on, which obligates the payroll through June 30th. We had to address that to reflect this change. As a result of that, that bottom line number changed, and we had to adjust it because the 25,000 was not available.
Can you explain to me what that putting in limited time means? I mean, are they not, I don't understand, what does that mean?
I don't know this.
He's currently out. He injured himself outside of work, and now he's currently not collecting a paycheck.
So he's gone off the books, is that?
He's off the books until he comes back.
Okay, so he's used up all his sick leave, personal leave, back time,
That
whatever
is
he had.
correct.
Yeah.
And now he's gone off. So there was a period of time where he was on the books, and now he's that.
Yes.
Right. So the Munis software calculates the remaining weeks for each full-time employee, so it actually tied up money that really wasn't obligated because of this situation, so we had to recompute the encumbrances.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Kim?
Glenn, do you know, what's your average weekly overtime expense?
It does vary, but the number that we're using is approximately 5,000. Because between now and the end of the year, this is the more popular vacation time, and we already forecast out and see who's already off, and we can kind of anticipate. But from here on out, I would anticipate between $4,000 and $5,000 a week in overtime.
Eddie, this record, is this current?
Yes.
So there's 12,000, almost 13,000, if I'm looking at this right, with my without my glasses, 13,000 left balance in the overtime account. And add these two transfers, that gives you, I think, like 40 grand. And there's,
Yes,
I think I
there's
just
a balance
counted
of,
14 weeks left in the fiscal year,
Correct.
including this week. So, give me a second.
that would be 70,000?
Because if you annualize your current expense, it doesn't come up to 5,000.
Well, I think because of the time of year, I think,
It's the time of year and the
Is estimated
injuries
higher?
associated at this time of year that are driving it. I do understand that if you go back, you can see that it's lower than that, but we're just trying to be
And
prepared.
that's strictly to provide for the minimum
The minimum staffing, correct.
that's required. Okay.
We're currently operating, two groups are operating at minimum now, so anytime somebody takes one day off or any hours, it automatically generates overtime, and that's due to injuries.
And what is minimum staffing?
It's six firefighters total on a shift.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? So total transfer is just over 20, I think, just over 28,000 to the overtime account.
Motion approved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Great, thank you. Thanks, Glenn. And I will, at this time, while I'm signing away here, I'll open up any further questions that we had to the revised CIP for the Fire Department Rescue. I think we had some expenditures just plugged into the wrong years, and it was worth taking a second look at that. And Chief Coleman's here, if there's any additional questions relative to the CIP that the deputy can't handle.
Through the chair, I'd just like to note a change or a mistake in the CIP that you guys have.
Thank
To replace the forestry one, that's going to be a 4-year lease purchase. It's listed as a 3-year lease purchase, but it's a 4-year.
All right, any questions, comments on this? Good, great. Thanks. Chief, thanks for coming up. Deputy, great to see you, too.
Thanks. Good to see you guys.
And I guess we'll expect to be seeing you sometime also in addition to Lieutenant Harrigan on some overtime transfers, hopefully a lot later on in the spring, right?
Hopefully.
Great.
Thanks.
All right.
Have a great night.
Have a good night. Have a safe night.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got one more transfer, but that's within the DPW Sewer Division, and we're going to be looking at that budget tonight. I spoke with Jeff Mitchell on that. We're going to go over that particular transfer when we get to that budget. Jeff said he's hanging around for a while. He's got a comfortable chair anyways. So we're going to move right on to the Department of Public Services. Our first budget is Veteran Services, and I'll say the head of that August division, Larry Corbin's here. Larry, nice to see you tonight. Feel free to come on up. And I'm going to take these by division, just the way the Department of Public Services kind of works. When we get to the DPW, we'll take that as a full department, just to keep things moving. There we go. So Larry's budget, town manager requests a budget of $75,040. This is an increase of about $9,500 from last year, if I'm looking at this correctly. The biggest piece of that is a $10,000 increase in relief and medical. We know that is really not a controllable dollar amount, and I think we already had to do a transfer earlier this year for the current year. With that, I'll open up to any questions for Larry. Kim?
Good evening. What is your relief and medical experience this year?
I'm sorry?
How many, has there been an increase in the number of claims this year?
Yes. I've had, one is medical budget only, which means we pay all their co-pays, and that's a real drain. Because, and another one is unemployed, and he just transferred in from Worcester. So he's adding another 1,360 to the payroll. So, and we pay every 2 weeks, so it's 50% each time.
Okay.
But the medical copay I pay monthly. And the last copay I've paid high as $1,300 and as low as $982, and it's the same patient. So it can get,
Fairly expensive.
it can get expensive. It'll come back, our 75% will come back.
No, I understand
But
that.
it goes up, so.
because usually don't we see an increase in benefits when we're in an economic downturn? And we're not really in an economic downturn right now, so I was curious why we were seeing.
Well, the transfer from Worcester, we picked up, it's $1,360, and the medical copay, that's the biggie. That kind of took us, and it was difficult to get it approved for 100%. Folks, that's better copay than mine. I mean, you know, I don't have 100% copay. So, yeah, proud to do it and make sure that the veteran gets
Absolutely.
his treatments and things like that. We got to do that, but it's the first time we've had such a deep budget, medical copay type budget. So, and, you know, we had a guy leave, we had another guy come in, and we had another veteran drop. So I got a guy 100%, he got his 100% benefits, which took him off our payroll, which was really good because he was on it for over a year. And he got, finally, we got him off, but as soon as I did that, the gentleman from Worcester came in and picked up the $1,360 basically. But everything's on a scale, and I know you guys realize that. It's all on a
Yeah,
scale.
oh, absolutely. And
Right.
we realize that actually regardless of whatever we approve for a budget, we're going to meet that obligation, and that'll get taken care of. So this could be, instead of a $75,000 budget, it could be a $40,000 budget. We'd be doing a lousy job here budgeting,
Yes.
but they will all get covered.
The difficult piece is the claims do vary from month to month. For some time, there is some consistency, and then things can change for the good and can change for the bad, however you look at it. And it makes it really difficult to budget this line item because of that fluctuation. So when we did a transfer a few months ago, we knew that that transfer would, based on the current claims, was not going to be sufficient enough to get us to June 30th. But we also take into consideration, because Larry and I do communicate periodically, and he said, this one may be falling off, that one may be falling off, so we don't want to transfer in too much money, especially if it's coming from a reserve account when we can use it for something else. Next year, given the level of activity for the current fiscal year, we did increase it. And based upon, we're going to do a recalculation, but based upon current claims, that may even be tight.
Right.
So that's something that we may realign in the fall if that trend continues, knowing that there's going to be a shortfall based upon a history as best as we can estimate it.
Okay. Yeah, because my memory serves me that that last transfer there we made, it might have been a couple of months ago, but it was certainly after the budget, the ink was dry on that, so it was certainly after that. All right, so we could have some exposure here that we may need to address, certainly for the fall.
Yeah, I let Ed know when people drop off the payroll. I revise it and things like that. Then I also let him know when I pick somebody else up.
Okay.
So,
Good.
and like I said, it's all up to the federal budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the current year, there is $3,600 left. I suspect, given the level of activity, that may last another month. We'll have to come back and ask for an additional transfer.
Okay. That's fine. Any other questions or comments on this? Once again, this is a division budget, but I'd like to vote on these. This is Larry's budget. We really don't necessarily, do we have a, who's in charge of the Department of Public Services? Does that fall under you?
Julie.
Julie?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Right.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Larry, good to see you.
Hey, it's always a pleasure.
Stay healthy,
You
will
know? Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
But if I may take a second.
Sure.
There's a story coming out in the Telegram and Gazette on an Auburn resident who was a American POW in World War II, captured at Anzio by the Germans, and I did an interview with him with the telegram and things. I've been working over at Eddie Pond and going over and hold coffee and donuts and stuff like that, and meeting with the vets and things. So I came across him. You're going to love this story. So,
Great.
just thought I'd let you know. It should be out in April, first week.
Thank you.
Good, look forward to reading it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Appreciate the work you do.
Thank you.
So our next budget is the senior center. Jane, yeah, how are you? Come on up.
Is it in this one?
First or second budget for you?
This is actually my second.
Second, okay, that's what
First
I
one was
thought.
kind of already done for me, though.
All right, so your first real budget. Amount requested, town manager request for the senior center, elder services, $172,200. This is an increase of 2% or just over $3,500 from the prior budget on this. Any comments on your budget? I usually ask the division heads.
No, the only, for the director, it was a 2% increase, and then for the assistant director, it was by union contract. Van drivers stayed the same. We did add for vacation coverage because the assistant gets, I think it's $15 a day. So I did put in for any vacation time I might have. Then as far as our expenses, equipment maintenance stayed the same. Our nutrition program stayed the same. Program expense. Let's see, miscellaneous supplies. We have maintenance and building, gas of the vans, travel, and then conference dues. We did increase that because there's the Massachusetts Council on Aging. There's a conference, that's a 3-day conference that we did put funding in for. That was the only really increase.
Okay. I'll open up to any questions. Kevin?
Just a quick question, just relative to what services you provide. I know your budget is primarily staff, drivers, vans. It doesn't seem like there's much in terms of program services stuff. What kind of stuff do you do within the center? And
We also have, we have also a formula grant, which is a grant that's provided by the state. That's about $38,000. So with that grant, it usually is for outreach coordinator. We have 2 outreach coordinators right now. And then we have contracted services, which would be like fitness instructors that would come in because we have line dancing, we have yoga, we have strength and balance, which is a donation for the seniors, and then they're paid for by the formula grant. And then we have our Friends group, which helps pay for expenses as well. So we do have different programs. I try to do a lot of free programs that will come in, so we do a lot of things on health. Sometimes, like say, Eddie Pond will come in and they're going to do a painting class. So we kind of tap on different organizations that come in and will do free programs for us. Entertainment is something that they like, and we do pay for that. There's a wide variety of card games. Our seniors really like card games. There's bridge and there's pitch, canasta, whist, Mexican train dominoes. Bingo is big on Thursdays. So there's a wide variety of different programs, and, you know, it's at nominal fee. They pay for bingo cards, or it could be like as I said, like a $3 donation for an exercise class. There's not a fee, it's a donation. Lunch program we have as well, which is Monday through Friday, and that's at 12 o'clock, and the meal is $2.50 for a hot meal.
We're doing more public service announcements here. That's great. Way to go, Kev.
You want to sign up for the line dancing now, Kev?
well, the Mexican
Mexican train dominoes on Fridays.
No, but I'm just, it's good, I'm glad the grants are there, but I wonder, are there any things that aren't getting done either from donations or from, Eddie Pond or through grant stuff that you would like to see? You're new to the directorship, but are there things that, not necessarily for this year's budget, but for future budgets? I mean, we do so much put so much money into the schools, and we put so much money into public safety, and our seniors, you know, if there are things out there, whether it's, I don't know, you know, whether it's
Right, I mean, I
trips
do
or-
try and do a lot like fraud prevention. We had RSVP come in and they did a whole thing on fraud prevention. The sheriff's department might come in doing something on scams. We had a really good resource fair, which was back in December, where local business and organizations came in and town departments and said, what's available for the seniors? As I said, like I try to tap on maybe more free things. Alzheimer's Association will come in. But as I said, Ed and Julie have been really good if I need extra funds, and we have increased a little bit of the budget.
So what Kevin's trying to say is the budget part looks really boring versus all this fun stuff
Right,
that's
right.
actually going on here. Something like that? Yeah.
I'm basically saying I would support if there was additional resources she needed.
Oh, thank you, all right.
To, you know, the fund the senior programs, so you're not having to tap on so many shoulders and ask for so many things. You know, it's a very lean budget you're presenting. It looks like you've, you know, you and your predecessors have put forth, and, you know, I guess I'm saying personally, I would support additional stuff.
If it was
you-
increased?
If you had other programs that you wanted to bring, you know,
Okay,
bring forward
thank
or
you.
ideas.
Yeah, all we get is transfers for extra gas for the minibus and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the other problem that we had this year, which might be a transfer, as Ed knows, is we had a problem with our heating system and air conditioning, where the circuit kept on blowing. So that was expense for Stearns Electric and Ace HVAC.
Good. Well, you're the best guys on it, so that's for sure. Any other questions on this budget? So a motion?
Motion to approve?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so voted. Great. Thank you, nice to see you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
Capital?
Yeah, do we have any capital related on there, Ed? Yes?
Just
there
in
nothing new?
2023,
Just in the out year? Okay. Just missed that. Dining furnishings and equipment, $25,000, scheduled in year 5. So is that as much a placeholder as anything on that, or is that a pretty good number that we know of?
yeah.
That was, the 25,000 is for new dining room chairs. The chairs that we have are probably over 20 years old. When we did the capital improvement plan, I had Bill Coyle and Kenny Fairbanks and Jimmy come, and we did like a walkthrough of the senior center, and we found the exterior of the building was good, the roof was in good shape, the siding, the rugs, the windows, the HVAC system. In time, we might have to pave the parking lot, but that wasn't anything right now. We did computer upgrades, dining room chairs, which that was the estimate that you guys have. And then the DPW had looked at replacing 2 slabs of the walkway in the back of the building, touch-up paint on a railing, fix the fence around the dumpster, install an overhang around the front door, maybe sometime overall painting of the interior of the building, and to purchase a new dish sanitizer. Those are some of the things that we
Okay.
had.
So that's good.
But most could be done within the DPW.
Good. That's great. Any other comments on that? You're not going to fix those chairs, are you? No. Good answer.
They're pink.
The DPW director said no for everyone at home, all right? So he's on the hook on that. So they're pink?
They're pink.
Okay.
Little dated, but they're still all right. That was the only thing we really had.
All right, that's great. Thanks. Any
Thank you.
any other questions or comments on that? Okay, great. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Okay, next up is the Department of Public Works, which is several divisions in there. Bill Coyle is here, Jeff Mitchell's here, Kenny Fairbanks, and Ken Holstrom has stepped in the house, too. Good to see you, too, Ken. Thank you. Thanks for joining our discussions here. Bill, good to see you. we're going to go through your departments. We will vote only on, your divisions. We'll vote only on the department total on that, but we're going to go division by division. Obviously, you've got some changes, I think some adds to staff going on, at least.
Yes.
It appears that way. And then, please don't leave before we go through your CIP when we have a transfer for sewer within that.
Absolutely.
So, any overall comments on DPW? Seems to me things are being coordinated very nicely throughout town.
Things are going well. I mean, I can comment probably on individual divisions as we go along, just to highlight certain things.
Okay, I appreciate that, and then I'll keep this moving. The first division is engineer, and the town manager recommends $673,057, which is an increase of just $3,000 over prior year. I think that's salary. Any comments from the committee on that? Bill looks pretty straightforward. No significant changes there.
Correct.
Okay. The second division we're looking at is stormwater, and once again, a fairly flat budget at $299,066, with not much moving around outside a little bit of salary move.
Correct. I just wanted to point out, I think the line item public education, for some reason, when it went to department request and town manager, it looks like the numbers were pushed down a line, so that $1,000 is showing up on the street sweeper, and it really should be in line with public education.
Well, that answers that question.
Okay.
All right, that makes more sense. If there aren't any other questions there, let's see, under highway is obviously a big division. The total for highway, I think I have the right number here, $1,266,435, and if the math is correct, that represents just over a 7% increase. There's multiple changes going on in here.
Correct.
So if you could talk to them, maybe just go a subgroup at a time, that'd be great.
Sure. The biggest change that's occurring is there's one additional staff member for the highway department, which would be shared with the fleet maintenance division. For the past several years, I think it's been identified the needs for a highway and fleet in particular, in need of the additional help. And so this budget includes that additional employee, and last year we brought on an additional employee. So that'll bring us up 2 employees. And then throughout the budget, I don't think there were major changes. There was one I'll point out that I see different than protective clothing, which was originally 3-year average at $10,000. The department request was $13,500, and town manager approved $10,500. It wasn't that she took protective clothing away. It was actually the original number included, I believe, the parks and cemetery employees, which are covered under their own divisions. So that number was actually reduced because of that. And then there were some other revisions that we had made. Again, nothing jumped out at me as major, and unless, other than snow and ice is something we can discuss, but relative to the line items, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but we tried to look at the 3-year average, try to look at trends,
Yep.
and make adjustments, but I don't think there's anything major.
Actually, one other significant change, not huge dollars, is we increased the budget for tree removal by $6,000.
Tree removal, I think it's 18 now? Where are we?
18
Tree
from
removal.
12,000.
Yes, 12 to 18, yes.
Which,
We-
my guess is if you didn't increase that number, then some of us here probably would have strongly suggested that.
And I can tell you, we get a lot of calls for trees, and I was out yesterday, 2 trees over on Harrison Avenue, and we look for property markers, we try to find some identification of whether or not there are trees or not, and both of these trees turned out to be 75% on town property, so we're going to schedule them for removal. If we run short, then I would look to use the roadway account, the engineer's roadway account, to remove the tree if it is a hazard. So I think even the numbers reflected in the budget are probably lower than ultimately we're spending on trees, because if we do have a dead tree, we move on it. We don't wait, because if, God forbid, something were to happen, we don't want to be negligent.
Right.
So we do get a lot of calls on trees.
Absolutely, and I'll just note that we dropped well, that's a pun in there, $29,000 in fiscal 17. So we're well below that high mark, but we're bringing the budget up to really average, which is 17,000 over the last 3 years.
And just as a point to mention also is that we do work with National Grid very closely, and Kenny Fairbanks does an excellent job. If there's ever a time that we can reach out to them to remove the tree, if there's wires in the area, we always try to go to them first before the town uses our funds to take a tree down, and he's been very successful with that as well.
I know Kenny's guys have helped me out personally, losing some trees a few years ago that were right on Upland Street, so.
Absolutely.
And it was in conjunction with, was it National Grid on that, so it was great. My 15 minutes of fame shutting down Upland Street on a Friday morning. So, still trying to get egg off my house. Snow and ice, obviously a big concern, and I know not part of the budget, but where are we now for the current year?
Snow and ice, we are at about 149,000 over budget. Original budget, I believe, was 381,000, and I believe we're somewhere around 529,000 for the year. And I can tell you that the past several years, we've been tracking where we're trending. In the past 2 years were the highest years. Last year, we were at 585,000. This year, we're about 530,721. And it's hard to say exactly, this is going to continue, because I looked at the numbers back to '08. We had numbers back in '08 that were just shy of 400,000. And when we became a DPW in 2011, we were at 294,000. The year that had the least impact was 241,000. Ed and I met last week to look at what our average would be, and I believe we're running somewhere about 430,000 on average. So unfortunately, the past 2 years aren't really typical of what we would normally expect. So we're trending closer to 430 and potentially even to 450 as prices inflate with the cost of salt and private contractors. So I think that's something that we're looking to, over time, try to increase what we're budgeting for snow and ice.
Okay. Kim?
Eddie, is that something that you'll look at for the fall?
We've always made this a priority every year. A few years ago, we increased it by $80,000, 81,000 to 381. I think we were at 300. So absolutely, we'd be looking to increase, especially in light of this fiscal year. 2 back-to-back years at $500,000 plus really puts a strain on the operational side of the budget. When, even though we can raise it on the recap sheet, it does impact the taxpayers of the community. It would be nice to handle that through the operational side of the budget. And so we're committed to increasing that when funds do become available. So, and Bill and I have talked, we'd like to, that number should be ideally, even though the average is about 430, at about 475.
Jeff?
Just based on that, based on what you said for historical data, where you'd like to be, Bill, you said we're between 430 and 450. Why don't we just, at this point now, can we add to that at this point through this committee here? I mean, could we make a recommendation to increase that amount?
I would not oppose that if the Finance Committee would like to take that position at this time. Typically, we wait to see what the final numbers are, just to see how the total revenue shakes out, but we know we have roughly $400 and some odd thousand available now of tax levy. So we try to we'd like to preserve as much of that as we can, but certainly this does benefit the community, the entire community, by keeping our streets safe. And it also takes out that element of future liability by raising it on the tax recap sheet. So if you're suggesting that the Finance Committee would support an amendment to this, town management would not oppose it, and I'm sure our DPW director would not oppose it as well.
I guess, through the chair, I haven't done this before, but I guess I would make some sort of recommendation motion to add $50,000 to that amount, which would split the difference that the DPW director just said between the 430. That puts around 440, so.
An additional 50,000.
475. We're going to pay it
We're trying to be
anyway.
conservative.
What line?
Yeah, what line would, well, actually, what line would make sense, Bill?
Sultan Council?
Well, the salt would, and just to point out too, with the last storm that we were, it was predicted that we were going to get, because it was a miss, fortunately, that would have probably been another 25, 30,000. But in addition to that, I did order more salt in the event of that storm. So I probably have about 300 tons of salt, so about $20,000 of salt, of value of salt in the shed, where at the beginning of the year, we started with 0. So the deficit that we have includes 20,000 that we do have additional, and then hopefully we don't use it this year. So I would say, looking at some of the 3-year averages, if it's 50,000, there's probably 4 line items that we could increase. With the salt averaging normally about 3,000 tons, I would recommend that we put part-time wages at 50, and the overtime, so it goes from 45 to 50, overtime from 65 to 80, equipment rental 45 to 50, and I think that would leave, it looks like 232 would make up to the 50,000. 232,000 in salt and calcium. I think that comes out to 50,000.
Okay.
5, 10, and another 25.
Ed, do you see any issues with that mix of spreading out the
No.
recommended 50 grand increase?
I think that's in line with, if you look at year-to-date actual, those are the accounts that are carrying the brunt of the expense. What I will tell you is, when we provided this recommendation, it was January. We hadn't expended much at that point at all. So not knowing that this year was going to be another expensive year for the town,
Right.
we still prioritize that as a consideration for future growth, but we were holding off until we saw the expense for this year.
And through the
But
chair.
now we know we're at $530,000. So that's why today, I do not oppose that, and I appreciate that recommendation, because I like to build in some excess money
Oh, absolutely.
to prevent us from draining the reserve account in future years.
Right. Kim?
Eddie, would you feel better going up to the 475 that you,
I think if we start at 50 and then we examine where we are after the local receipts and everything is known, the state numbers, then we may make an additional correction at the fall town meeting to bring it up to 475.
Yeah, we
Good.
still
That's
have that
fine.
option on it. Yeah, and once again, I'm frustrated because I know that, we can raise this in next year's tax rate if we go over, but we can't use available free cash except for other capital expenditures. I know I bitch at Eddie all the time about how that's just inconsistent with use of our current tax monies for snow and ice removal. We've already had it. Just doesn't make sense, but
And Mr. Chairman, I can say that at the beginning of the year, we usually start the year with an empty shed. I mean, next year we are going with, again, hopefully we don't go back out again, but about $20,000, maybe 25% of the shed is full right now. So going forward, we fill the shed, and then as the year comes to an end, if we had a light year, I'd love to end the year with a full shed, so we're not always starting off the year with $80,000 is what the initial cost is to fill the shed. So each year, I'm always hopeful that we're going to have a light or a lean year, and that way we can try to get ahead of the curve a little bit. But unfortunately, we haven't had that lean year, and I think I agree with Eddie. Back in January, we were hoping maybe things wouldn't be so severe this winter, but it just continued on a consistent pace. We ended up being out salting the roads 50 times, so 46 times so far this year. Last year we were at 50. So we were out a lot, and it adds up. We are trying to minimize the cost of the town, especially with the use of our own staff. The past several storms, we only had 8 private contractors, so I think we've had 24 of our own staff working, so rather than renting piece of equipment and an operator. We have our own people and our own trucks to minimize the cost. We have the custodians out working. We have the golf course employees are out plowing. So we try to use all of our own staff to get as much as we can get done at the minimal cost. And
Okay.
thank you, though.
Well, that's good. The only other addition I'd like to note, at least or an increase, is your plow blades budget went up, which is, I guess, consistent with using more of your own guys, right? And
Well, it is, but
town equipment.
this, the other thing that is adding to that is we're purchasing, when we replace the cutting edges, we're replacing them with carbide cutting edges, which we found, I think, Jeff, we replaced, what, probably four trucks now with carbide? Three or four. So the blades are in excess of $1,000, but Devon, typically during a storm, we're breaking cutting edges constantly, okay? And these carbide ones, we've gotten 3 years, I think, out of one blade. So even though they're probably 5 times the cost, they're not breaking. And so they're lasting several years versus one cutting edge lasting, 1 or 2 storms. And then we're buying more and more, and it's downtime and time that it's like triage in that garage every storm. They're constantly coming in with broken cutting edges, hoses that are gone, and wipers that are no longer working. So it's something that if we can keep one truck out on the road longer, it benefits everybody. So that's why that's also gone up a little bit, is because we're purchasing carbide cutting edges.
Good investment. That's great. And I just wanted to note that. So when we vote on this, we'll be increasing the highway total to, my math says here, $1,316,435, and that's about an 11% increase, if I did the math right on that, just on this division, or no?
What is it?
1,316,000 or 260? I thought it was
316. Did I say 260? I meant 316.
Yeah, 3.
$1,316,435. That's just on the highway division budget. Any other questions on that budget for the moment?
Yeah, question, Chapter 90 money, how much did we get this year, and how much do you anticipate for fiscal 19?
It's $609,000 and some dollars. I think we had an increase. I haven't received the letter yet, but I think it was about,
$42?
yeah, maybe, it was less than, maybe $50. It was a small number, 40-something dollars. So there really hasn't been any increase in Chapter 90. We still haven't gotten or received the official notification as of yet. We are going to begin work later next week on our roadway projects. I'm waiting until Monday to get confirmation on exactly what day, but my understanding is PJ Albert's going to start later next week. And the existing contract we have on the street is $1.6 million, and we would expect that we will have at least another $600,000 from Chapter 90, and we'll be over $2 million that we'll expend this year on roadway work. And we're going to get an early start, so we should get a lot done this year.
Great.
Good.
Good to hear. Kim?
You want to do a public service announcement and tell everybody where you're going to...
I'm going to hold off because I'd rather wait until I confirm with PJ Albert on Monday, just in case they don't start at that street, because they can change last minute. So I'm going to hold off, but we will notify the abutters. We'll put it out on Facebook and Twitter, and we'll get the message out there on Monday.
Good.
Thank you.
That's great. Looking forward to that. All right. The next division budget is...
We need to vote that one?
Yeah, I'm going to do it just as one vote on the whole department. It's a nice round number, so we can do it that way. And I have a feeling it's going to be, I would hope unanimous. I know Ed doesn't say much on that, but, The facility management budget is $75,500, an increase of just under $4,000 from prior year. And it looks to me that's what? Mostly salary growth, that's all. Or
Correct.
wage growth in there.
And just to point out on the salary, we lost one custodian this past year, and we brought on a new custodian, and so we're trying to increase his salary to bring him more in line with where he should probably be. So that's reflected in the budget.
Okay.
Just a quick question on
Yeah, Kevin.
that one. We keep hearing all the great work and seeing the great work that your facilities guys are doing. Are the supplies being purchased through the individual divisions that they're doing projects for? So Is that enough there, I guess is what I'm saying? I mean, I guess I understand that,
Yeah, it's a great question, Kevin. The bulk of the supplies that we've been purchasing are from the $100,000 that was approved last year in the facilities plan. So there have been some of the departments that are also funding some of the work as well. For example, I know in DDIS, they transferred some funds from wages to help fund their project. But the bulk of the funding is through facilities for the major projects, and then the minor repairs would come out of their individual budgets. So I think we've been in pretty good shape. In fact, we have still a significant amount of work to do to utilize the funding that was approved at last spring town meeting last May. So I think we're in good shape.
are they in good shape? I mean, I noticed there's a tools line here that has been utilized. I mean, I see there's all kinds of great saws and stuff out here. I mean, just the level of projects they're doing is unbelievable, and the overall savings that they're saving the town. Is there something that they're, those guys, the carpenters, these guys with the skill set, is there anything they need?
Tools being picked up in the next budget. I don't know how that came up, right? In the fleet maintenance, or is that?
That's
a
separate
set of
department.
tools?
At this time, I think we're in good shape. Certainly, they will let us know as the time goes on that their equipment starts getting older and utilized more. I think we'll have to start looking at replacement costs. They were outfitted fairly well in the beginning and purchased what they needed as they went along. But I think you're right that going forward, we have to look at replacement costs. But for this year, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions on facility management? Okay. Fleet Maintenance Division, amount requested, $195,580. That's an increase of, what, about $9,000 from prior year. And that's, let's see, $5,000 in tools. I got ahead of myself on that. And the rest, I guess, wages, overtime. The tools...
Sure.
Is there anything specific with those?
Yes,
this year?
I spoke with the lead fleet mechanic on this item in particular, and essentially it's a lot of the scanning tools that he has to purchase. So as the technology changes, the tools that he needs to scan the systems as well change. So it's just keeping up to date with technology and purchasing scanning equipment for diagnostic purposes.
Would some of that also have to come with training?
There is training. I'd have to see whether or not there's a separate cost to that, but I think he would have factored that in.
Okay. I see small amount for education, which I don't know if it's relative to that or...
It's mostly, I think, a lot of on-the-job training,
what I figured.
a lot of experience.
Good.
Just a quick question, relative to the overtime that's listed there, if they're staying for snow and ice, you just mentioned repairs and stuff for the plows that come in, is that go into the snow and ice?
Snow and ice budget.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is separate overtime, this is,
Absolutely.
All
And
of
they're critical to the department.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on fleet maintenance? Okay. The next division is parks, and the parks total amount requested, $229,925, and that is about $5,800 more than prior year. Any comments on that, Bill?
Yes, I think in the parks, we'll see an increase, and I'd have to reflect back to, we haven't hit cemetery yet, but there was modifications made to both parks and cemetery with Wayne Bloomquist retiring. So I believe you'll see an increase in the labor in parks because we made adjustments on the two full-time employees and increased their salaries with more responsibilities. So that's why you'll see about a $9,000 increase on the salary line item from 18 to 19. And then we also have $5,000 appropriated in the revolving account for an additional part-time employee or seasonal. And again, that's to pick up some of the workload that Wayne Bloomquist was performing. So, Wayne would not only manage people, but he'd also go in and help out as needed. So, juggling all these different responsibilities around, we felt that they would need another seasonal employee. And they're also down a full-time person now due to an injury, but we're expecting him to be back hopefully by mid-April.
Okay. Yeah, and I see a corresponding drop in the cemetery salary or wages line. That's consistent with your comment on parks. Any other questions, Kev?
Just, can you just explain what the Pappas Electric is? I see that there were no previous, looks like you requested 4,000, town manager did not recommend. Can you explain that one?
General services.
Yeah, so,
I'll defer to Eddie on that
yeah,
one.
no, it came to our attention as we were going over the budget. This is currently being picked up by general services, but going forward, we're going to charge those electric costs to the Pappas revolving account. So certainly, the revolving account is used to maintain the facility and pays for some costs associated with the facility as well. So that's something we removed. Ideally, we like to remove the water too and charge it to the revolving account, but we're not in a position to do that until we get a handle on not only the labor costs associated with the facility, but all the maintenance and other ancillary costs relative to that, those fields, so.
Okay.
And once you kind of get a grasp on that, is that something that you'll kind of, I wasn't aware there was a revolving account for the recreational, so will there kind of be a spreadsheet as to how much that facility costs and where they, where that lays out?
Yeah, certainly, we're carrying debt and interest costs for that facility that would absorb 100% of that revenue. So the debt alone, we're paying for through the general fund, through general taxation. But we want to make sure that we can provide enough dollars to maintain the facility before, especially the fields. We know that there are future costs associated with potentially replacement of the turf up there as well. So we have to come up with a plan to hopefully build up some reserves to pay for those future years' costs without draining it just to meet our annual costs, so.
We do have, just to point out, quite a bit of demand for the use of the fields at Pappas. We have people coming in and calling constantly to utilize the fields. We prioritize the town's needs first, and then any time that we have remaining after that, we will rent out the facility, and I can tell you it's pretty big demand. So we've been fortunate that way, which any of the funds that we receive from the rental fees, those funds go into the Pappas revolving account.
Have we looked at what our fee schedule is compared to other similar facilities? For instance, Northborough that has, are we in line? Are we a bargain?
We looked at it when we first opened, and I think at that time we were in line. I mean, certainly it's probably due to take a second look at it. I would say that looking at the user fees for Lemansky was significantly low, so we actually doubled that fee. I believe we were at $50 for 4 hours, which was very low. And currently, Pappas, $45 an hour. So with the lights, it's $80 an hour. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it may be something to make sure that we're, if there is wear and tear on those fields, there's, the demand,
Absolutely. It's probably a good time to revisit that. Again, we looked at it when we first opened them, and we felt we were higher than some, but lower than others. But it certainly takes it's been probably 5 years now. Yeah, so I think it's a good time to revisit it.
And those leagues that are using it, those AAU programs, I mean, they're bringing in big dollars in terms of,
Yeah. AAU, a lot of soccer.
Problem now, we're not getting as many rentals because often youth soccer is growing so much. They take 80% of the time and really.
right.
Right.
You're losing out.
Sure.
You guys are gaining. Losing
Right.
out.
So we do try to work very closely with the leagues to say, don't just block out a large amount of time if you're not going to use it. So we do find that they've worked well with us to say, we're not going to use it on this day, and so that has worked out well, but the needs of the town have certainly grown over the years as well.
Okay. Anything else, Kev?
No.
The Little League father is done for the moment. All right. By the way, though, the water up there, is that Elm Hill or is that?
It's Elm Hill.
Well, not well.
Excuse me? It's not Auburn, it's Elm Hill Water.
Yeah, okay. The next division is Packagug Golf Course. The golf course recommended budget is just over $338,000, and that's an increase of about, what's that, $15,000 over 2018. Can you give us just a brief on how the course is doing? I know the enterprise fund is doing okay, I guess, right?
Sure. I don't know, Ed, do you have a balance on the enterprise? I know it's about $50,000 a year.
So, I think year one, the profit was about $48,000, year two is about $45,000. So we do have certified retained earnings from the Department of Revenue of $80-some-odd thousand. That's a good thing. We're turning a profit despite the fact that we're paying for a large capital cost for the purchase of the equipment to maintain the course as well as the golf carts. And those leases will be retired in 3 years.
Yeah, I think we have 3 more years.
So certainly, there will be some replacement costs down the road, certainly not in year 5 or year 6. So that should be able to generate an additional increase to fund balance and retain earnings above and beyond what we're seeing now. So we're pleased with the level of play, the activity. We are turning a profit. We did make some adjustments in the budget on the operational side, which we believe will be able to hopefully maintain the same level of gain on an annual basis as a result of those adjustments. The indirect cost, Bill and I go back and forth on that. The enterprise fund is paying for 100% of all costs associated with the golf course, not a dime of general fund revenues or general fund taxation is going towards the golf course. So I know that was a concern of town meeting when we first presented it. I can tell you it's been very successful, thanks to the hard work of these gentlemen here, and as well as Kristen Pappas, who are very dedicated and service our golfers up there with a smile, and we're proud of the fact that it's doing very well.
Good to hear.
And if I could add, Mr. Chairman, I couldn't be happier in terms of how successful it's been, and we do have a great staff. In addition to Kenny and Kristen Pappas, Pete Corio and Chris Hanlon. Pete is the superintendent, and a fabulous superintendent, great worker, extremely hardworking, takes a lot of pride in the course, and we're very fortunate to have him and Chris and the staff that work in the clubhouse as well. Again, they're all people that are experienced with the golf course, and they know most of the golfers there, they know the course, and it's worked out excellent. And it's, you know, better than what we had thought. Last year, we kept track of the calendar year. We closed the calendar year at about 400,000, and I think, you know, it exceeded our expectations once again. So this year, obviously, we're going to have a late start. We did last year. Last year, we opened April 10th. So this year, we may be, you know, similar type of start.
There's our PSA, I guess, right?
There's more information for you. I knew you were waiting to find out what the opening date was.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we did increase the superintendent's salary about 4,800, and the groundskeepers as well.
Yep, definitely appropriate, given the time they're spending there. Never mind what they're doing in the off-season. I know they're part of the DPW, so I'm sure you keep them busy.
In the winter, they've been here at the town hall painting, plowing during snowstorms, so it's worked out well.
That's good. But just one question, and I should know the answer. I know you have a contingency in here, and that makes all the sense in the world. I guess basically everything still rolls into retained earnings on the enterprise fund if we have money left over, right? That's just bottom line on that. Okay. And the equipment maintenance account, which is, I'll call that new, is that because we have some, I'll call shorter term warranties that are running out?
It's basically the equipment is in need of sharpening the cutting edges for all the equipment. And I believe previously we had, where the equipment was new, we didn't have to really sharpen in the first year. This past year, the funds were taken out of the golf course maintenance account. So it's more just to try to identify where the money is really going. In addition, I believe we also increased the merchandise account and food concessions, because those are also running short. So where this is our third year going into the season, we're trying to adjust the different line items appropriately.
Sure, build a better budget. Good.
And just to point out too, we're also trying to do a lot of the maintenance and updates within the existing budget. The time is that we replaced, there were two that we replaced last year. I want to say somewhere in the order of $7,000 came out of the actual budget. And then going forward, we have two more timers that these date back to the 1970s for the entire irrigation system. We're trying to replace the other two this year with funds in our contingency balance that we have 10,000 remaining. So it's not just the operating, but it's also improving things that have needed to be updated for many, many years. So.
Great.
And now that we're building up the retained earnings as well, we can always do an outside article or build this into the capital with the direct offset to the enterprise fund, like we do for the other enterprise funds. But certainly, we'd like to build up some more equity into that account before we start drawing off, because if you have one season with a lot of rain, it can really impact your revenue. So we'd like to build that up to a level that gives us a little more comfort.
Good. Well, that's great. That's a nice story for us, for the town. The next division is recreation, total budget of $51,000, basically flat funded off of prior year. Any questions on that, Kev?
I actually do, and I apologize for not approaching you prior to this, but my question is relative to recreation, similar to what the senior center budget was. We do a tremendous job in town with public works, schools, public safety stuff, but, is this a piece of the pie that we're, not fully exploring? And I'm curious where we are in terms of a recreation budget for town compared to the Holdens, the Shrewsburys, the other similar-sized budgeted towns. Are we right on the money, or are our programs and services considerably below what they're offering?
Through the chair, it can be a little difficult to compare, because some of the recreation departments also include operating the parks department. So we can look into it further. I have looked at it, and all of them, or many of them, have recreation and parks all merged in together. And a lot of times the recreation director would be Parks and Recreation Director, so the oversight is the entire department, and all the funding and all the different items fall under the same. So what I would probably have to do is look at recreation and parks together and compare those to the Holdens and Shrewsburys, I believe, and see what their budgets are, and then and see how we compare.
And I know it's going to be a little bit different. You're going to have Holden that operates a pool. Is the pool under the recreation department? Is it under?
It is hard to compare.
But I guess it would probably be more a level of services provided than it would truly be completely budgetary.
Sure.
And I'm just wondering, are there other things that we should be exploring out there as another piece of the puzzle as residents, taxpayers that we're looking for?
Well, in addition to what you're seeing here, there's also a recreation revolving account.
Okay.
Which supports all of the recreational programs for our youth in this community. It doesn't go through the general fund operating budget. So that's something we can get you. I can tell you there's probably a fund balance in that account of about $90,000. So that, as well as self-supporting, and allows us to offer programs that that may be funded through the revolving account and not through a fee. So there are some winners, there are some losers, but overall, bottom line, we're gaining every year. And because we're gaining, we're able to offer more programs on a community level because of that. So there is a strategy in place. I will tell you, it's a very active recreational program. Primarily takes place when school is released and continues all summer. And we can identify those programs for you if you would like. We can tell you what we offer
Yeah, I would just be curious to see where we are in terms of budgeting compared to other communities, and, not just the youth programs, we put a ton towards the kids, but, what else is out there in terms of there are other program communities offering, we've got waterways in town, or we, could be doing kayak programs, could we be doing, we just had the trail open last year up at Pappas.
Right.
So things like that may not be here, but they are, in the works for our overall recreational, but, and again, I know Kristen's doing double duty now, especially this time of year, but I'm just, if it is an area that we should be looking at more heavily to make it a better, well-rounded community,
Yeah.
something to,
We often have discussions about what else can we offer the community. I mean, most recently, we're doing movie night for the community, in addition to the summer concert series, which we consider a benefit to the community. So we're trying to expand these programs as we move along. And we, it's tough because Kristen really is a one-person operation. She does rely on people that we fund through the summer program to assist her when things get very busy. We got the Fall Festival that is offered as a recreational program to the community. So Kristen is doing a great job, but certainly, when we can, we try to expand upon what we're offering now.
Right, and I can say beyond the recreational activities, she also has the Special Olympics. We have the Farmers Market, that's every other Sunday. It was started last year, she's going to continue this year. We've added in the alternating Sundays will be a flea market at Pappas as well. So she is always looking at adding different activities, but it never hurts to look at other communities and say, is there anything else that we're missing that maybe we could add? Because I agree, it's always great to see what we can add to help the residents participate in different activities. We have PIO classes at the high school. I know she's looking at different golf classes currently. She was talking with a golf pro today, so we're trying to work on that as well. So, I mean, she's always looking at different activities, but we can take a comparison to Holden and Shrewsbury and any other communities, maybe Hudson and out some of these similar sized towns that we are.
and is there a recreational committee, or is that an active one? Is that an inactive committee, or?
Yeah, we do have a Parks, Rec, and Cemetery Committee, and in addition to the Packshot Golf Course Committee as well. And I know one of the committees met with Kenny and Kristen, the Parks and Rec and Cemetery Committee early this week, and we're meeting tomorrow with the Golf Course Advisory Committee, so.
It's an interesting combination of committees' names.
Yeah, it is.
But, I mean, that may be a committee that could do some, push back to them a little bit and let them do a little bit of legwork for you and then report back to you what they'd like to see, so.
Great idea.
Good one.
Not to throw stuff at you.
Absolutely. Okay,
Thank you.
great. Anything else on our recreation?
Yep. Just a question for Ed. What did you say that balance was in the recreation revolving account, approximate?
I think at the close of June 30th, it was 90, so certainly there's revenue going in during the year, expenses, so I would have to run a report to give you a up-to-date number, if you would like me to provide that. If you have it.
Could you do that? Could you give us a report with the balances in those revolving accounts that we have?
Sure.
Because we have many of them, I think, right? Yeah.
I'll do the entire
Thank you.
revolving account.
Great.
Yep.
Thanks, Ed. Anything else? Okay, the next division is cemetery. And as we alluded to briefly earlier, that recommended budget is $180,569, a drop of just over $3,300 from prior year, part of it due to shifting of, let's just say, senior administration overseeing it. Sorry, Ken, your senior administration.
It's the gray here.
Yeah, I know, must be. I'll open that up to any questions. Obviously, cemetery's in great shape. I mean, I get over there frequently, even off-season, and still in good shape.
Yeah.
So nothing but kudos for me on that. Any comments? Ed, did you have a comment on that yet?
No, I didn't.
Good, okay. And the last division is the sewer division. Jeff Mitchell's here for that, and before he leaves, we have a transfer also on that, but the budget recommended for sewer is $1,884,751, and I had that as about $116,000 increase. approximately from prior year. Any highlights on that worth noting on that? Jeff, if you want to come on up to the podium or wherever. Bill, don't go too far.
It's a good try.
We're almost done anyways.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jeff.
There's nothing really, anything spectacular that jumps out. We did address the shortage within the electricity account that we'll be discussing in a short time.
Yeah.
But other than that, the Upper Blackstone assessment was very low again this year, which helped, keep the budget where it should be. But other than that, there was no large adjustments, just mainly the wages.
Okay. Yeah, it's a big budget. And further to electricity, the amount requested increased is $20,000 to that. And I had a bit of a chat with Eddie earlier today, and we're talking more about the transfer that we're going to talk about a little bit here, and the different variables that go into that electricity. My initial concern was this metering agreement, that kind of thing that we've touted so much for electricity a few years ago. Was that coming up short for us? And Eddie was pretty adamant that, look, the sewer stuff has got a lot of things going to it, including, I guess, the flow rates, whatever, affect electricity, the big break that we had down at the bottom of Upland Street, and what we needed to do to work around that had a significant impact. Both of those, I guess, that are part of the cause for the extra funding request, the transfer request. Any other comments relative to that and electricity?
Well, the issue with the electricity, I believe, if you notice, we level funded, for the last few years. And last year, for example, we got right around this time of the year, and it looked like we were going to be, real short. And we transferred, 20-something thousand in. We didn't end up using it all. We used a portion of it. But the main issue that we're having is with the credits that we're getting from the solar agreement. And they're all over the place. Going back to FY16, the sewer department alone, realized over a $20,000 credit for the year, which averaged out, to about $2,800 a month, which, that's 20,000, 110, 130, so you'll see where I'm going with this. And then fiscal 17, that 20,002 went down to just under 16,000. And then coming into fiscal 18, we're down again to 12,000 so far, in credits. And they're not consistent, depending on the time of the year. So I don't know if they're not maintaining, so the systems aren't generating as much as what they should be, or what they anticipated, or what the deal is. I talked to Matt Benoit today, and, he's trying to get a handle on all of this since Eric has left, and it's a lot of work to put everything together. But he was able to put these numbers together for me for tonight, just so I could explain it a little bit. That's where we're coming up. It's hard to look in our crystal ball and know national grid prices, the transmission prices are going up, our credits are going down. So we don't know,
Right. Hard
really
to budget.
where to go. So.
Totally agree, it's hard to budget when a big number like that is swinging by 10, 15, maybe 20% on that.
I mean, the transfer that's in front of you tonight is money that we know is readily available within our budget, and that will cover, the immediate electric bills that we have. But, again, as others have said tonight, we may be back towards the end of the fiscal year, depending on where the credits fall. They've been known to increase this time of the year. You know, so we'll get the big bills in February and March, and then April and May, or May and June, we'll get all these credits and we'll get zero, zero balance due on some of the big accounts. So it's, like I said, it's hard to,
Okay.
crystal ball gets a little cloudy.
Otherwise, though, a pretty uneventful budget, which is
Yes.
good, especially the Upper Blackstone charge to us.
Yeah,
Nice to see that's
the
on-
Upper Blackstone worked very hard. I don't know if you recall, maybe 2 years ago, I come in with all kinds of doom and gloom, saying we're going to have to double our rates and, and all of this stuff, when the EPA was telling us we had to, spend $200 million on upgrades and whatnot. But the staff of Upper Blackstone was able to negotiate with EPA 10-year compliance schedule, which has leveled everything off.
When did that
nicely.
10 years start?
Excuse me?
When did that 10 years start?
This year.
Good answer, I like that.
Yep.
All right. Ed, any other comments? You seem to be postured to make a comment on the
No,
heating agreement.
I actually looked at a spreadsheet that was sent to me by Matt Benoit today relative to these credits. And I would fully recognize the fact that our credits have been reduced from last year. But I think the annual savings projected still for the sewer department in the form of a credits for the current fiscal year is about $15,000. So the net metering credit still does provide a benefit to the town as it currently stands, even though we're getting less than we did a year ago. So the market conditions and these rates do change. The amount of power that's generated through this facility is a reflection on what comes back to us. So it's something that our energy manager monitors all the time. And we try to reflect that through the budget as best we can. And that's why you see an increase in Jeff's budget, recognizing the fact that those credits are not what they used to be. And it may swing the other way, we don't know. So that's one of the unknowns, and it makes it difficult when preparing a budget for the next year.
Any other questions or comments on the sewer division budget? Okay, great. So overall, for the DPW, we've got, I'm going to call it an adjusted budget of $5,244,274, and I believe that's including the $50,000. I think my math is correct, and that's about a 3.8% increase over the prior year. Any final comments or questions? Motion on the DPW budget?
So moved. Second?
We'll figure that out later, I guess. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, thank you. Now, we still have CIP, and we still have Jeff's transfer. Let's do the transfer first. I don't know if Jeff needs to get out of here a little quicker than that, but... So the transfer in front of us, this is under the sewer division, as noted. There's two transfers, both going to the electricity account, so I'll accept the motion to take them as one.
So moved. Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so voted. Thank you. The first transfer from computer services, that's $2,800. The second is from the contingency account, $12,000. So a total of $14,800 to the electricity account. And once again, Jeff did say that there is a very good chance this is not the last transfer for the current fiscal year. Any final questions or comments on this?
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so voted. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate your time on this. And now let's go to the DPW CIP. Bill, if you can give us just a quick on add-ons to 2023,
2023, let me just take a look.
and then if there are any other significant changes that might have been made in the not-so-odd years.
Sure, 2023, we've kept a lot of the items that we would normally submit. We have roadway improvement and also the drainage accounts. We've kept those somewhat level funded. In 2023. One of the interesting points, I guess, to mention would be just the cost sharing for the vac truck. Again, we've split that payment of $50,000 for each department, the engineering department for
So that-
drainage.
That's one truck under
This is,
the two
the
accounts?
vac truck is, right, with the sewer department's paying for $50,000 per year.
Yeah.
And the engineering division will pay for $50,000 per year. So we'll use the vac truck to clean catch basins and also to maintain the sewer infrastructure. We're anticipating, I think the first year we have that budgeted 2021, and I think Jeff has looked at it, we're at 500,000 is what we're anticipating. We're hoping that number is a little on the high side, but based on some of the discussions that Jeff had a year or so ago, they're anticipating a significant increase in the cost as time goes on. So we want to make sure we have enough programs. So it'd be nice if that number is on the high side, but we'll find out when we get to it.
So 500,000, we have a garage for that somewhere?
Yeah.
Something that expensive?
It's in the
Gotta be in the
garage.
garage, okay, good.
So that's going to come out of the drainage account. The downside of that is for the years that we're paying for the truck, it's a hit on the drainage account, which we utilize that for a lot of our roadway work. So. Yeah, oh, that's right, that's an important one. The municipal lots, I've met, Eddie and I had several meetings and discussions on how to move forward with reconstruction and paving municipal lots.
Sounds like the senior center just put in a big plug for getting the first bunch of that money.
They did, but they're probably going to be towards the end of the line, I think, because we have some that are in a lot worse condition. They would probably be an overlay. I looked at some of the numbers, just rough numbers going forward to give you an idea. The fire station, as it would currently stand, would be about $150,000. They're in very rough condition. DPW, about the same number, about $150,000. Lower Lemansky, sometimes we forget that Lemansky Parks and the pavement is in very poor condition. Lower Lemansky and Upper Lemansky combined, about $250,000. Town Hall, which would probably, when we get to it, whether it's an overlay, hopefully just be an overlay, about $80,000. The library, in pretty good condition, 75 to 80. Senior center, 65 to 70. So we're trying to look at some of these numbers and see how we're going to fund these going forward. So what was suggested was that we start programming that in the CIP and just tackling one at a time. So we have 150,000 programmed in 2023, and we'll see what the conditions are at that time with the fire department. Obviously, they're looking at potential changes to their structure, so we wouldn't want to go in there this year and reconstruct their parking lot, not knowing what the future is for that building. So that's a major change going forward. I think we'll be plugging that in each year until we get to a point where we have all the parking lots maintained as well.
So we're not, just so everyone knows, not considering taking a year off from the street improvement program?
Correct.
Because the math adds up to be something approaching $600,000-$700,000, which is Chapter 90 equivalent.
Correct.
But we're not going to do that.
Correct, Mr. Chairman. We're trying to phase this out each year. So I think we're looking at 150,000 in 2023. 2024, we'd probably look at a similar number and just work on getting all these parking lots improved. So it wouldn't take away from the roadway.
And as part of that discussion, too, we also would be looking potentially at using a portion of our, under our new free cash policy,
Yeah.
maybe a portion of that to get some of this work completed as well. It's a one-time expense, qualifying expense, so all depending on, we'd have to assess the need for that free cash, but that may be a consideration as well.
And then looking at the additional CIP items for 2023, we have 50,000 for replacement of a six-wheel dump truck. That truck is a 2007, which would be about 16 years old at that time. And we're trying to get to a point where the larger trucks that we're replacing somewhere between 15 years, ideally. And then we have if I can try to get the lines on these correctly.
Ed, I have that same problem. Can we get some lines put on here?
Yeah.
I can't follow these things.
F3.
If we get you a ruler.
No. Yeah, it's on
What lines?
on the budget. If I can't get pizza, I can't get a ruler.
So we have an F-350. This is the first payment of a 2-year lease purchase, so that's $35,000. Sidewalk tractor, this would be the fourth, loader. This is the fourth payment for the loader, front-end loader. So we're budgeting $200,000. So next year, we'll have the final payment programmed in 2024. Sidewalk tractor, this is the third payment, the $45,000 of a 4-year lease purchase. And that's essentially mainly utilized for plowing the sidewalks. And then there's another 6-wheel dump truck, $50,000. That is the third payment of a 4-year lease purchase, and that's replacing an 04 6-wheel dump truck in 2021. So that, again, that'll be 17 years old at that point.
Are those prices still pretty good in terms of enough to cover?
We've been trying to modify these on some of the amendments as we go. I think because we've been purchasing a fair amount of trucks and replacing a lot of old equipment, we have a good handle now on what the costs are for this equipment, whether it's with a wing or without a wing. So just using the numbers we have today and then adding inflation to them. So unless something changes with, major air quality improvements or emissions, that might change. That'll add a significant cost that we're not aware of. At this time, we feel comfortable with those numbers. Are good.
Okay, good. We don't have to worry about adding all-wheel drive no, I'm sorry. Kind of unfair, I guess. All right.
Also, under the sewer department, you're going to see an increase in the sewer line repair. Trying to be proactive here as a result of the sewer main break that took place up on Packagug Hill recently, which really, we had a retained earnings account in the operational side of the enterprise budget, which was transferred out to meet a large share of that cost. This would provide monies to deal with a situation that may occur during the year that may be unforeseen. It also is part of a larger plan, too, to address an aging system that would allow for, I think Jeff is going to propose a warrant article. Is it one at the annual or is it the fall?
Well, it may be both, but annual.
Annual for some design and engineering work that would examine the existing structure and may identify those areas that may be vulnerable to a future break. And with an loan authorization that may be introduced in the fall would provide for some bond proceeds that would allow us to line those pipes and extend the life expectancy dramatically on that section of pipe. There are vulnerable areas that Jeff has identified as a result of buildup of what? Sulfide gas, which is breaking down the inner linings of the concrete pipe. The lining that's put in there would not break down with these gases. So anyway, we have a plan to hopefully try to address.
Good. And that line item had been budgeted, or the CIP prior years was at 50 grand, so we've had 100, right, per year?
Right.
Good idea. It was an expensive break. Was it $250,000?
We're probably at about 175 now. We were at 140 and, hold on, we know what that cost is.
Right. No.
$250,000.
So right now, we're at 142, and that additional invoice came in. Has that been paid yet, Jeff?
Yeah, it should have been. Should have been set back.
Okay, so we're currently at 142,000. We did get authorization from DOR up to 200.
For the break. Ouch. Okay. Any other additions? Cemetery, looks like, if I read it correctly, some stand-up mowers, a couple things in the out years.
Correct. I believe the stand-up mowers, we had, we're actually replacing, I believe, 2 of them at that time for $25,000.
Okay.
And then there'll be the second payment for a backhoe.
All right. Any questions on the CIP for the DPW? That's great. I think we're all set, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Very good. Thank
Good
you.
information.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Excellent. Okay, I think we have 2 more budgets. I think they were pretty benign. We've got Town Hall. The Town Hall budget, the town manager recommends a flat funded budget at $39,000, unchanged from prior year. Any questions or comments on this? Kim?
Eddie, I'm looking at what you've spent so far. And we've gone over on equipment maintenance and building maintenance.
And just take a quick look. So I think the building maintenance, I carried over a sum of money for a sprinkler
Okay.
system, about $4,000 that was ongoing. I think I can reclassify some of that expense to offset those deficits. So I think it's related to an alarm and a sprinkler system issue.
So we're not,
So,
this is okay?
yeah, that was a one-time increase in costs that we're not expecting to hopefully reoccur. So we believe, at this point, this budget would be adequate for the next fiscal year.
Okay. Just because if you look at the 3-year average, it's higher.
There might have been some big hits in there. And me,
I know in the past, we've had some boiler issues, both in this building.
But if you're
But we have a new
comfortable with that-
boiler, and hopefully those costs will go away.
There you go.
We'll keep an eye on it, and you know what, if those costs do hold true, then we may make an adjustment at the fall town meeting.
That's fine. Motion to approve?
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Thank you. And our last budget of the evening, Ed, is there a CIP related to Town Hall? I thought one of these had some CIP related to it.
I don't believe so.
No? Okay. We'll give it a quick check anyways. General Services, Town Manager recommends a budget of $1,410,978. It's an increase of nearly $11,000, if I'm looking correctly, from prior year. I see $10,000 additional in insurance and bonds over prior year.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. Typically, there is an increase. We're hopeful that it will be level funded, because since we prepared this budget, we've learned that our experience model in our workers' comp has gone down. So hopefully that premium will remain the same, even though our payroll has increased, because we do pay a workers' comp rate based on work classification on total payroll. So that 785 should be hopefully a good number.
Good. And I did not have a chance to take a look on our year-to-date on this. The electricity and street lights, those are very big bills. Are we doing okay with those?
So actually, we have expended year-to-date on streetlights, although it's showing in the hole is $43,000 encumbered, but we're hopeful that we will get a savings as a result of the conversion to LED. So that project will be underway. It's currently underway now. There was a $100,000 outside article that was approved at the last town meeting that allows us to do an audit and design work, and to also purchase the streetlights that are not under our ownership right now. And then there is a authorization to borrow money, even though we put in for a $250,000 green community grant to do all of our streetlights. If that does not come in, we do have a loan authorization as a backstop that will allow us to borrow money. We do get a credit of about $80,000 from the utility companies to do this project. Try to minimize the cost at the local level as best we can. But that's going to result in some savings to the street light account as well. It's all depending when that conversion
I was
is
going to say,
being
that'll
done.
be as soon as next year?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. What did you just say? We're 40 grand over budget on that already?
No, we have 43 encumbered.
Okay.
It looks like we're going to be okay.
I'm sorry, then I misunderstood you. Good. Okay. Any other questions on that?
Yep.
Ann?
What is the, I'm just reading this budget, there's a line there for admin? Is that, I'm just wondering where that, is just that,
Oh, that's the clerical.
Oh, the clerical part-time?
so that is right there. Okay, so that includes the, all right, so,
So that really is a portion of the clerk's salary. They run all the mail through the mail machine, which goes through general services. So we charge a portion of that individual's salary.
okay.
It's been that way for a number of years.
Okay, and that's just noted on one of the other pages then?
The offset should be on the treasurer's.
No, that's fine, I was just,
Yeah.
it's just a random number, it's just a random increase there, I was just curious, but it's accounted for somewhere else, so that's fine. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Thank you. All right, so that's all the budgets for tonight. Just quickly, we'll be meeting again in 2 weeks. That's going to be our last budget meeting before town meeting, or I guess the items for town meeting. So the budgets we have left, we have library, the reserve account, pension and benefits, youth commission, Bay Path, which I think was flat or down, the Norfolk and Smith School assessments, and the town meeting warrant. Sharon, are we going to get a copy of that, or do we have it?
I have some.
Okay, great. And I believe the board has pushed them along to Hannigan's office. So these are basically sort of draft form still. But I wanted everyone to have the warrant articles as early as possible. So we're kind of educated when we go over them in 2 weeks. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, a couple of comments, Mr.
Sure.
Chair. So I had some discussions with the school department on their capital for FY19. There was a line item, equipment food service, which is equipment that is used for the milk and lunch program. So I had some discussions with the school business manager as well as the school superintendent on utilizing milk and lunch funds to purchase that equipment. They have a fund equity balance of about $160,000 to $180,000, and I suggested that they may want to purchase the equipment identified in FY19 to go directly against that, and they fully supported that. So they amended their capital by reducing the equipment food service, and I can provide the letter to you as well as the adjusted sheet for schools. Bottom line didn't change. They're actually increasing building rehab at Bryn Mawr School by that same value.
Okay.
But school lunch is picking up 100% of that cost against the revolving account.
Was that the 25,000?
That is correct.
What about the 50,000 in 2020? Is that,
So that's a consideration that we will revisit that.
Okay.
To see what their level of fund balance is at that point in
okay.
time.
So right now they're covering just the 19 portion of that. Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, give that one more letter.
Oh, here we go.
Do they have this, the revised one too?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we should.
And Mr. Chairman, one other thing, we intend on bringing in to your meeting on the 9th, the policy for the sped stabilization account, which Kim and Kevin participated in, but wanted it to go to the school committee and to the Board of Selectmen first, to make sure that they supported the policy. So I believe it's going to the board on the 9th. So we will be bringing that in, and hopefully the school department will be available to attend that meeting and speak on behalf of them.
Okay. So we're going to add that on the 11th also. Okay, full night. All right. Any other loose items before we close the meeting? Good. There being none, I'll accept a motion to adjourn then.
Motion?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so voted. Thanks, good night.